For more than 600 years, the Valorian Empire ruled the galaxy like a burning sun that never dimmed. Their ships crossed star systems without fear, their armies walked on 1,000 worlds, and their emperors believed they were chosen by fate itself. Every enemy that rose against them fell in the same way. Fast, silent, and hopeless. People in distant galaxies whispered the same line. Nobody defeats the Valorians. They were known as the Unbroken Conquerors, a title that no one dared to challenge. Their greatest pride was the fleet of 100 suns, a formation of massive warships so bright that from far away they looked like glowing stars drifting through the darkness of space. Each ship carried enough firepower to crack open a small moon. Entire civilizations surrendered the moment they saw the fleet appear on their scanners. The Valorians believed victory was their birthright. They believed no one could ever threaten them. They believed the galaxy was theirs forever. But all empires make one mistake sooner or later. The Valorians made theirs on the day they received a strange report from one of their outer scout teams. The report contained only a single new word. Deathworlders. No species profile. No map coordinates. No diplomatic record. Just one name. And a warning mark beside it. At first, the Valorian High Council did not care. They had faced strange species before, some large, some terrifying, some technologically advanced. None of them survived the first battle against the fleet of 100 suns. So when the Emperor heard the word, Deathworlders, he laughed. He said, "Another small species trying to sound dangerous. They will kneel like all the others." But there was something different this time. The scout ship that sent the report disappeared shortly after. No signal. No distress call. Nothing. It was as if the ship had been erased from the galaxy. The Council sent 2 more scout teams. Both vanished. Still, they dismissed it. Space was full of strange natural dangers. Black holes, silent storms, gravity distortions. The scouts probably drifted into one of those. But then the Emperor received a message from the Valorian outpost near the border of the unknown region. The officer on duty said that their sensors picked up moving objects, many of them, traveling at impossible speeds. The outpost tried to scan them, but every system shut down. Before the message cut off, the officer whispered, "They saw us." And then the screen went dark. This time, no one laughed. The Emperor ordered the legendary fleet commander, High Admiral Soren Velker, to investigate. Soren was a legend even among Valorians. He had won battles in every part of the galaxy. His tactics were studied by every military academy. His ship, the Empyrean Dawn, was feared like a storm made of metal and fire. When Soren heard the word Deathworlders, he simply said, "If they exist, we will crush them." To show the Empire's strength, he took with him a heavy strike group, 30 warships, each one capable of destroying entire fleets on its own. As they left Valorian space, citizens gathered in the sky towers to watch the bright trail of engines burning across the darkness. Children pointed at the warships and said, "The heroes are going to win again." But deep inside the command chamber of the Empyrean Dawn, Soren felt something he had not felt in centuries: uncertainty. He reviewed the last recordings from the outpost. There was no enemy shape, no visible ship, only shadows moving across the stars, too fast to identify. The Valorians had faced fast enemies before. But these shadows didn't match any known technology. They moved like they were part of space itself. The further the fleet traveled, the stranger the space around them became. Navigation glitches. Sensor interference. Communications dropping for seconds at a time. It was like entering a storm that had no center, no source, no logic. And then, at the very edge of the uncharted zone, something appeared. A message. Not a voice. Not an image. Just text. 2 words. Turn back. The Valorian officers stared at the message in silence. They expected arrogance. They expected threats. But this simple warning felt colder than any threat they had ever received. Soren frowned and ordered a reply. "This is Valorian territory. Identify yourselves." Seconds passed. Then minutes. No answer. Instead, the entire display screen flickered again. The same message repeated, but this time it was written across every console in the command room. Every screen. Every panel. Every device. Turn back. The fleet officers shifted uncomfortably. Even the bravest Valorians felt the weight of something unseen watching them. Soren clenched his fist. No one warns the Valorian Empire. Prepare to move forward. The engines roared. The ships pushed deeper into the unknown. Outside the fleet, the stars grew darker. The silence grew heavier. And somewhere out there, hidden in the shadows of empty space, something was waiting. Something the Valorians had never fought before. Something that had already seen them. The unbroken conquerors were finally stepping into a place where their victories meant nothing, and their legend might end. The Valorian strike group moved deeper into the dark region of space, leaving behind the last known star. The engines glowed like blue comets, but everything around them felt unnaturally quiet. No signals. No radio waves. No traces of life. Even the normal hum of the universe felt muted, like sound itself was being swallowed. Inside the command center of the Empyrean Dawn, High Admiral Soren kept his eyes fixed on the forward display. The word he saw earlier, "turn back," echoed in his mind. He had fought countless enemies, but none of them ever spoke in such a calm, cold way. "This silence," Soren muttered. "It feels planned." His second officer, Lyra Vesk, checked the scanners again. "Admiral, even empty space has background noise. But this place? It feels like a vacuum inside a vacuum." The crew said nothing. Valorians were trained to be fearless, but fear was creeping into the room like a slow, invisible mist. Then something happened. A small beep. A blip on the radar. Everyone leaned forward as the scanner finally picked up a moving object. "Contact detected," Lyra reported. "Distance, 15,000 units. No heat signature. No energy trace. No known identification. Visual." Soren asked. "Trying," she said. 4-5 long seconds. The screen remained black. Then a shape appeared. Something small. Something dark. Something fast. It wasn't a ship in the way the Valorians understood. It looked like a sharp fragment of night, almost invisible, sliding through space without disturbing anything around it. "What is that?" an officer whispered. The object turned slightly. Then a second one appeared behind it. And a third. And a fourth. In total, 12 shadow ships formed a silent wall in front of the Valorian fleet. Soren narrowed his eyes. "Bring us closer." "Admiral, that might be unwise." "Bring us closer." The Empyrean Dawn moved forward, its massive hull casting a dim reflection off the shadowy figures. The moment they crossed the invisible line between the fleets, all Valorian systems flickered. Lights dimmed. Screens reset. Weapons powered down. "What just happened?" Lyra shouted. One of the engineers answered in a trembling voice. "We're being hacked. Every system, locking up, shutting down." Soren slammed his fist onto the console. "Impossible! Our encryption is the strongest in the galaxy." But the truth was clear. It didn't matter how strong the Valorian systems were. The Deathworlders broke through them like they were nothing. Suddenly, a message flashed on every screen in the same calm text as before. "Turn back." But this time, something else followed it. "Last warning." The room froze. The Valorians had faced threats before. Loud ones. Angry ones. Desperate ones. But this message had no emotion. It spoke like someone stating a simple fact, as if the Deathworlders did not fear war or victory, only inconvenience. Soren's voice hardened. "Send a message. Tell them we will not retreat." Lyra typed the response. Her fingers trembled. The message sent. The shadow ships didn't move. They didn't aim weapons. They didn't power engines. They simply existed. "Why are they not responding?" one officer asked. "Maybe they think we're not worth answering," another said. Soren refused to accept that. "Prepare weapons. Focus all cannons on the closest target." The crew obeyed, but something was wrong. Every weapon control panel flashed red. Access denied. System locked. Override disabled. "Admiral," Lyra whispered, "they have taken full control of our ship." Soren's jaw tightened. He felt something he had not felt since he was a young recruit. Helplessness. Then the shadow ships moved. Not forward. Not backward. They simply shifted, like they were repositioning for something only they understood. One of them drifted close to the lead Valorian cruiser. The shadow seemed to touch the cruiser's hull. Instantly, the cruiser went completely dark. No explosion. No fire. No debris. Just dead. By the suns. An officer breathed. The shadow ships pulled back into formation. Then a new message appeared on every Valorian screen. This is your end point. Leave or be erased. Soren glared at the text. He would rather die than retreat. But Lyra stepped forward. Admiral, this enemy is different. They know our technology. They know our codes. They know what we will do before we do it. Soren closed his eyes. He hated the truth in her words. Then, as if sensing their hesitation, the shadow ships vanished. Not jumped to light speed. Not cloaked. Just disappeared, like they were part of space and simply faded back into it. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Lyra finally said, Admiral, those were Deathworlders. Soren stared at the empty void ahead. For the first time in hundreds of years, the Valorians were not hunters. They were prey. And the Deathworlders had just let them live long enough to think about it. The Valorian fleet drifted in uneasy silence after the shadow ships vanished. The bridge of the Empyrean dawn felt colder than before, as if the darkness outside had slipped through the walls and settled in the air. High Admiral Soren stood in the center of the command deck, his eyes fixed on the empty void where the unknown ships had disappeared. Keep scanning, he said quietly. We are scanning, Admiral, Lyra replied. There's nothing. No movement. No trace. It's like they were never here. But everyone on the ship knew that wasn't true. The Deathworlders had been there, watching them, studying them, controlling them. And now, they were gone. But the fear they left behind stayed like a shadow no one could escape. Soren turned to his weapons officer. Report. Are our systems still locked? The officer swallowed hard. Yes, Admiral. Every weapon is frozen. Even internal defenses are offline. It's like the commands come from somewhere else. Can we cut the link? Soren asked. We don't know how the link was created, the officer said. It's not a frequency. It's not a signal. It's something else. Soren hated answers like that. The Valorian Empire knew everything. Every part of space, every species, every science. But here, in this dark region, they were children in a place built by something older. Something smarter. Lyra spoke again. Admiral, the Deathworlders let us go. Soren shook his head. No. They let us think we are free. As if to answer him, the lights flickered again. Not a full shutdown. Not a system lock. Just a flicker, like someone tapping the ship gently to remind them. We are still here. Enough waiting, Soren said, straightening his uniform. We move forward. The Empire demands answers. The fleet reformed their formation and pushed deeper into the region. Engines glowed blue again, but this time the light looked smaller, weaker, like candles in a dark storm. Minutes passed. 10. 20. Nothing. Just empty space stretching endlessly in every direction. Then the radar beeped. A single, soft sound. Barely noticeable, but everyone froze. Contact? Soren asked. Not exactly. Admiral, it's behind us. Lyra widened the scan. The crew gasped. A massive structure had appeared behind the fleet, so close it should have been visible. But it wasn't there moments ago. It looked like a giant ring of black metal, turning slowly in the dark. At first it seemed hollow, but when the scanners focused, the fleet saw something far worse. Inside the ring were hundreds of tiny shapes. Not asteroids. Not debris. Ships. Small, silent ships. The same shadow ships as before. Packed together like a wall of knives. Lyra whispered. They didn't follow us. They were waiting for us. Soren's fists clenched. Helm, turn us. Before he could finish, every ship in the Valorian fleet shuddered violently. Gravity spike, an officer shouted. Something is pulling us. The ring of black metal was glowing now, faintly, like a dying star waking up. The glow spread along the inner edges, forming patterns that none of the Valorians recognized. It's a trap, Lyra said. And she was right. The fleet wasn't being attacked. It was being guided, dragged toward the ring like metal pulled by a magnet. The engines roared as the Valorian ships tried to break free, but the gravity force only grew stronger. The fleet moved closer to the ring, slowly but helplessly. Soren activated the emergency thrusters. All ships, fire reverse engines. The fleet strained. Metal groaned. The command deck shook violently. For a moment, it felt like they might escape. Then the shadow ships moved. They drifted out of the ring in perfect formation. Smooth, slow, silent, as if they controlled the very laws of movement. No engines. No heat. No sound. Two ships positioned themselves beside the nearest Valorian cruiser. Then something unbelievable happened. They didn't fire. They didn't ram. They didn't hack the ship again. They simply touched the cruiser's hull with a thin, glowing line. The cruiser went silent instantly. Its engines died. Lights faded. Communications cut. It was dead. Soren felt a chill. They're disabling us one by one. But the shadow ships weren't finished. More of them came out of the ring. 10, 20, 50. Surrounding the Valorian fleet like a black ocean rising around tiny islands. Then a new message appeared on every Valorian screen. We warned you. 3 words. Cold. Calm. Final. Soren shouted. Prepare boarding shields. Prepare. The ship shook again. The gravity force grew stronger. The ring pulled them in. Lyra turned pale. Admiral, they're taking us inside. Soren looked at the ring. He felt something he had never felt in his entire military life. Not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. A fear that this wasn't a battle. This wasn't a punishment. This was something much worse. Judgment. As the Valorian fleet was dragged into the giant ring, the shadow ships followed silently, like hunters escorting their prey into a cage they had built ages ago. And deep inside that darkness, something ancient waited for them. Something the Valorians were never meant to see. The Valorian fleet slid helplessly toward the giant black ring, pulled by a force they couldn't understand or resist. Engines burned at full power, but the ship still drifted like leaves caught in a powerful current. High Admiral Soren stood at the command deck, gripping the edge of the console as the Empyrean dawn shook violently. Stabilize the ship, he ordered. We're trying, Admiral, an engineer shouted. The gravity is increasing. It's not natural, Lyra said. Someone is controlling it. Everyone knew who. The Deathworlders. The shadow ships moved beside the Valorian vessels like silent ghosts, guiding them into the ring with slow, deliberate precision. They didn't need to fire weapons. They didn't need to speak. Their silence was more terrifying than any attack. As the fleet crossed the boundary of the ring, everything changed. The darkness inside was thicker, deeper, almost alive. It swallowed the last bits of light from the fleet's engines. Stars vanished. Space became a black sea that drowned all hope. The Valorian ships were now inside the Deathworlder trap. Admiral, Lyra whispered. Our scanners aren't reading anything. Not even ourselves. Soren looked at the blank screens. Then we use our eyes. He walked to the main observation window. And he saw them. Shapes. Hundreds of them. Shadow ships drifting through the darkness like blades sliding through water. They moved without engines, without sound, without light. They positioned themselves around the Valorian ships, above them, below them, surrounding them in every direction. It wasn't an attack formation. It was an execution circle. A quiet voice from the back of the room broke the silence. Admiral, we are outnumbered 10-1. Soren didn't answer. He didn't need to. Everyone understood the truth. Numbers didn't matter here. They were already defeated. Then something happened that froze every Valorian in place. One of the shadow ships drifted in front of the Empyrean dawn. A thin beam of invisible pressure expanded from its hull. The beam wasn't light. It wasn't energy. It was something new, something the Valorian sensors couldn't understand. The beam hit a nearby Valorian cruiser. There was no explosion. No fire. No shrapnel. The cruiser simply folded, its metal bending like soft clay, before collapsing into itself with a silent flash, shrinking into nothing. A whole ship erased without a sound. Gasps filled the command deck. "What weapon is that?" an officer whispered. "It isn't a weapon," Lyra said. "It's control. They are controlling the ship's structure." As the Valorians watched in horror, another shadow ship moved into position. Another invisible beam. Another cruiser collapsed like paper crushed by an unseen fist. The fleet's strongest vessels, designed to survive star explosions, died like insects caught under a boot. But the shadow ships still didn't speak. Still didn't broadcast threats. It was the quietest battle in Valorian history. A silent slaughter. Soren snapped out of his shock. "We must fight. Send manual override to the weapons. Even one shot." "We can't," the weapons officer cried. "Every firing system is blocked. They control everything." "Then prepare ramming speed," Soren growled. "If we can hit one." Before he finished speaking, the Empyrean Dawn jerked to a stop. The engines shut off. The thrusters froze. The ship was being held still by nothing visible. "Admiral," Lyra whispered, "they're holding us in place, like we are toys." Soren's voice hardened. "I refuse to die without a fight." But the Deathworlders did not care about refusal. More shadow ships moved toward the fleet. Some circled the Valorian destroyers. Others glided beneath the frigates, scanning them with strange pulses that made their metal vibrate like struck bells. Then, for the first time, the shadow ships changed formation. They aligned in straight rows, forming a perfect grid across the darkness. And the meaning was clear. The real attack was about to begin. Soren braced himself. His officers held their breath. The grid of shadow ships pulsed once. Soft, almost gentle. Then every Valorian screen lit up at the same time. A message. "You entered forbidden space. You ignored our warning. Now you will see the cost." Soren's chest tightened. "They're not destroying us. They're teaching us." But no lesson was gentle. The shadow ships fired. Not lasers. Not missiles. Not plasma. They fired lines of invisible force, thin enough to be unnoticed, powerful enough to slice through metal like warm butter. The beams cut across the Valorian ships in clean, silent strokes. A destroyer split in half. A frigate melted into dust. A battleship collapsed inward like it was made of dry sand. All without a single sound. The fleet was dying in silence. Only the Empyrean Dawn remained untouched. Lyra whispered, "Why aren't they destroying us?" Soren stared into the darkness. "Because they want us to watch." As the last Valorian cruiser folded into nothing, the Deathworlder grid shifted again. The shadow ship surrounded the Empyrean Dawn, holding it like a prisoner. Then a new message appeared. "We spared one ship. You will carry our warning back." Soren felt something colder than fear. A truth he didn't want to accept. "They're letting us live," he said. Lyra nodded with trembling hands. Not as a mercy, but as a message. The shadow ships opened a path back to normal space. The silent battle was over. The Valorians had not fought. They had not resisted. They had only watched as their greatest fleet died without a sound. And the Deathworlders had spoken with actions more terrifying than any words. The Empyrean Dawn drifted through the quiet darkness, the last surviving ship of the Valorian strike group. The shadow ships had vanished, but their presence still clung to the air like a cold weight. High Admiral Soren stood at the center of the command deck, staring at the empty void ahead. His fleet, 30 powerful war vessels, was gone. Destroyed without sound. Without struggle. He should have been furious. He should have been planning revenge. But instead, he felt something far heavier. Confusion. Who were these beings? How could they wield such power? Why did they spare only one ship? Lyra broke the tense silence. "Admiral, we finally have something." She pulled a holographic screen forward. It flickered, then displayed a single rotating image. An unfamiliar planet. Dark oceans. Jagged continents. Storm systems swirling like monstrous spirals. The atmosphere glowed with violent electrical storms. Soren frowned. "What is that?" "Our scouts sent a partial data packet before they vanished," Lyra said softly. "This is the world they discovered." the home of the Deathworlders. The hologram zoomed in, revealing massive forests with trees taller than starships, deserts filled with storms that moved like beasts, mountains split open by glowing rivers of molten rock. This planet, an officer whispered, is unstable. More than unstable, Lyra answered. It's deadly. Soren stepped closer. Explain. Lyra took a slow breath, gathering the courage to speak what she had discovered. This world has storms stronger than anything recorded in Valorian history. Winds that can tear metal apart. Lightning strikes that last for hours. Earthquakes that split continents. Volcanoes erupting every few cycles. Entire regions shift under constant pressure. She paused. And that's just the environment. The room fell silent. Lyra continued, voice tense. The animals here. Admiral, they don't behave like normal life. They hunt in groups. They hide. They plan. They ambush. Some can see in complete darkness. Some can smell a creature from miles away. Some can break bones with a single bite. One officer muttered, "What kind of world breeds that?" Lyra gave him a cold look. A world built to kill. Soren folded his arms, his voice low. And yet, someone survived there. Lyra nodded. Not someone, Admiral. A species. A species that learned to live in a place where everything tries to kill them from the moment they are born. They grow stronger by fighting the planet itself. Their children learn to survive storms that would tear our ships apart. She swallowed. They are the Deathworlders. Soren stared at the hologram again. He expected to feel superiority, anger, pride as a Valorian. But what he felt was something far different. Respect. Show me more, he said. Lyra tapped the controls. The hologram shifted to show Deathworlder settlements. They were not beautiful, not like Valorian cities. They were armored, reinforced, built low to the ground. Every structure looked like a bunker. Walls layered with unknown alloys. Doors sealed with systems the Valorians couldn't understand. These people do not build for comfort, Lyra explained. They build to survive. Every building is a shield. Every street is a fortress. Soren nodded slowly. A world that tries to kill them. So they learn to kill back. She continued, their technology is not like ours. They don't use beauty or simplicity. They use practicality, strength, speed, efficiency. Another hologram appeared. One of the shadow ships. It's not invisible because of cloaking, Lyra said. It's invisible because its material doesn't reflect light or heat in any normal way. It bends around sensors. It hides its presence by blending into space. So the ships aren't stealth, Soren murmured. They're born from the same instinct as their people. Lyra nodded. Survive. Adapt. Overcome. A heavy silence settled in the room. Then Soren asked the question everyone else was afraid to speak. Why have we never heard of them? Lyra hesitated before saying, because they never left their region. They stayed silent, hidden, content to survive on their world. But then, another officer added, we came too close. Soren exhaled slowly. So they destroyed us to protect themselves. Lyra shook her head. No, Admiral. They didn't attack because they felt threatened. Soren frowned. Then why? She looked down, almost afraid to answer. They attacked because they saw us as a danger to the entire galaxy. Their message said it clearly. They're not conquerors. They're guardians. Soren tightened his jaw. Guardians who kill fleets without hesitation. Lyra nodded. Because to them war is survival. Mercy is illogical. Fear is useless. They act with purpose, not emotion. And their purpose? Soren asked. Lyra's voice became a whisper. To keep balance. To stop any empire, even ours, from growing too powerful. They watched us, saw our conquest, and decided enough was enough. The officers shivered. Soren stared at the hologram of the violent planet, the birthplace of the beings who had destroyed his fleet without a single sound. He finally understood the truth. The Deathworlders were not monsters. They were not mindless killers. They were the result of a world that crushed the weak and perfected the strong. They were survival made into a species. And now, they had stepped out of the shadows. Not to conquer the galaxy, but to control it. Admiral Corval stood frozen as the Deathworlder fleet entered the battlefield. Their ships did not slow, did not hesitate, and did not break formation. It was as if they already knew the outcome. The Conqueror crews watched the enemy with silent fear. No one said it out loud, but every soldier felt it in their bones. This was not a normal enemy. This was something beyond them. For 10 generations, the Conqueror Empire had crushed every species that stood in their path. Their strategy was sharp, their weapons unmatched, and their discipline unquestioned. But when facing the humans, these strange Deathworlders, their pride felt heavy, almost painful. Corval forced himself to speak, though his voice trembled. Why do they not respond to our warnings? Why do they fly directly into a kill zone? No one answered. Because no one knew. The Deathworlder fleet continued forward, quiet and steady, like predators that did not recognize the meaning of fear. On the command deck, the Conqueror officers stared at the strange triangular warships. They were smaller than Conqueror destroyers, yet somehow more intimidating. Lieutenant Sarah whispered, "Admiral, they must be fools. Their numbers are low. Their ships are thin. Their shields are weak. Why attack us?" Corval did not answer. He was remembering something. A rumor. A whisper from another sector. A warning he had ignored. The words repeated in his mind. Deathworlders do not fight with strength. They fight with logic. They will burn down their own path if it helps them win. He suddenly felt cold. Meanwhile, on the front line, the first Deathworlder ship finally broke silence. A single transmission echoed through all Conqueror channels. It was calm, almost emotionless. "Conqueror Empire. You have entered restricted human territory. Turn back. This is your only warning." The voice was not angry, not loud, not threatening. It was worse. It was confident. Commander Vask hissed. "How dare they warn us? We are the rulers of 3 galaxies." But even he did not sound convinced. Corval leaned forward. Open reply channel. "Yes, Admiral." He took a slow breath. "Deathworlder vessel. This territory belongs to the Conqueror Empire. You will withdraw or be destroyed." There was a pause. Then the human voice returned, still calm. "We know who you are. And we know what you do to worlds. This is why we are here." A chill swept across the command deck. Before anyone could respond, dozens of Deathworlder craft suddenly broke formation and dove into the Conqueror fleet. Not with caution. Not with fear. With purpose. They flew into position so perfect it felt like they practiced this exact moment 1,000 times. Their timing was flawless, their angles precise, and their speed unreal. Sarah gasped. "Admiral, they're pilots. They're using battle math we don't even understand." The Deathworlders moved like they could predict the future. But that was not the most frightening part. The frightening part was what happened next. Every human ship released small metallic pods. Hundreds of them. They scattered like shining seeds, drifting between Conqueror cruisers. No alarms triggered. No shields reacted. They looked harmless. Commander Vask frowned. "Are they mines?" "No," Sarah whispered. "They're too small." Suddenly, the scanners lit up. The pods opened. Not with explosions, but with signal bursts. The entire Conqueror network flickered. One by one, their weapons lost targeting. Their shields glitched. Their engines misread commands. Officers panicked as controls froze and screens warped. It felt like the entire fleet had gone blind at the same time. Corval's voice cracked. "What are they doing to us?" Sarah shouted. "They are attacking our system logic. They studied our command protocols." For generations, the Conqueror fleet believed their systems were perfect, unbreakable, untouchable. But the Deathworlders had not attacked the hull, not the shields, not the weapons. They attacked the one place the Conqueror Empire never defended. Their logic, their structure, their mind. Corval realized the truth too late. "This is why they flew straight into our kill zone," he whispered. "They knew they didn't need to dodge. The Deathworlder voice returned, calm as ever. Conquerors, you have strength. But strength without thought is just noise. The Conqueror admirals felt their pride shatter. The message continued. Your empire ends today. Because you never learned how to fight someone who thinks differently. The pods pulsed again. This time, the Conqueror engines began shutting down one by one. Dead silence filled the command deck. Corval stared at the frozen controls, feeling the weight of history collapsing on his shoulders. The undefeated fleet, defeated without a single hull breach. And the Deathworlders had not even started firing yet. This was only the beginning. The Conqueror flagship floated helplessly as every system shut down. Entire power cores went dark one after another. The screens turned black, the engines fell silent, and even the emergency lights dimmed until only a faint red glow remained. It felt like the heartbeat of the fleet had stopped. Admiral Corval stared at the dying lights. Impossible. This cannot be real. But it was real. The Deathworlder pods had disabled navigation, weapons, and shields across thousands of Conqueror ships. Generations of technology, perfected through war and domination, collapsed like sand in a storm. No fire. No explosions. No battles. The Empire's greatest fleet was defeated by thought. A voice broke the silence. Admiral, incoming message. Corval swallowed his pride. Put it through. The calm human voice returned. We have disabled your fleet. We do not wish to destroy you. But we will if you force us. Every Conqueror officer shivered. The words were simple, but they carried weight. The Deathworlders had shown mercy, but the kind of mercy that came from absolute control, not weakness. Commander Vask finally spoke, but his voice was small. What do they want? They clearly can destroy us. Why didn't they? Sarah answered before the Admiral could. Because they don't see honor in killing helpless enemies. Corval looked at her. She was right. But another truth pressed against his mind. A harder truth. They don't destroy us, he said slowly, because they want us to understand. Vask frowned. Understand what? Corval exhaled. That all our victories, all our conquests, all our pride, meant nothing to a species that sees war differently. The transmission continued. You call yourselves conquerors. But conquest without reason is only fear in disguise. The officers flinched, felt as if the humans could see into their hearts. Then the message changed tone. We are Deathworlders. Our home shaped us to survive the impossible. We do not seek empires. We protect life, our own and others. Corval clenched his fists. And now they expect us to believe they are heroes? Sarah shook her head. No, Admiral. They aren't claiming to be heroes. They're claiming to be necessary. Outside the viewport, the Deathworlder ships repositioned. Not aggressively, almost gently. They created a barrier between the Conqueror fleet and the nearest star system. A silent message. You are not going forward. Not today. Not ever again. Corval felt something new. Something he had never experienced in all his years as a conqueror. Respect. And fear. A second message arrived. Short. Simple. Surrender your campaign. Withdraw your borders. Release your slaves. End your empire. Or we will end it for you. Gasps filled the command deck. Vask shouted. They talk as if they can erase an entire empire. Sarah whispered. Admiral, after what we saw today, maybe they can. Corval closed his eyes. The truth was undeniable. The Conqueror Empire had always believed that strength came from force, from numbers, from technology. But the Deathworlders fought with something else. Something the Empire had never respected. Logic. Strategy. Survival instinct. Unity. They fought like people who had faced extinction many times before. And survived each time. The bridge fell silent as Corval made his decision. A decision no Conqueror Admiral had ever made. He opened a channel to the Deathworlder flagship. This is Admiral Corval of the Conqueror Empire, he said slowly. We acknowledge your superiority. Every officer froze. Corval continued, the words heavy and painful. We will withdraw our fleets. We will end all active conquests. We request terms. The reply came instantly. Accepted. Your people will live. Your worlds will remain yours. But your empire ends today. Corval bowed his head. When the transmission closed, Vask whispered, Admiral, will our ancestors forgive us for surrendering? Corval looked at him with a tired expression. Our ancestors lied to us. They told us we were unstoppable. He gestured toward the dark, powerless fleet. Today the truth arrived. Outside, the Deathworlder ships powered down their weapons and drifted away. The pods dissolved, releasing the systems of the Conqueror fleet. Energy slowly returned, lights flickered back on, and engines hummed again, but the damage was already done. The Conquerors were broken not by force, but by understanding. Sarah watched the human ships depart. Admiral, what do we tell the Empire? Corval turned to her, his voice steady. Tell them, we met a species that does not rule the galaxy. He paused. They do not need to. Sarah frowned. Why? Corval's answer was quiet. Because the galaxy already fears them. The Admiral looked at the stars where the Deathworlders had disappeared. For the first time in his life, he hoped never to meet them again.